All right, all right. What up, Shara? What are you all doing? You hear me okay, my friend? You hear me all right? Like, taking all the pressure. Like, goes in a row. Yeah, I do need to learn how to run clips. I learned, but I'm going to learn some other things again. Not that stuff. Thank you, Sherry, for hanging here. Hey, guys. Hello. Welcome from what are we? The Queen City. We are a very cold city. We're Radio City at Cincinnati. I'm Cliff Schechter. And here from Cliff's Edge, our lovely live stream. Talk about a couple things today that hopefully aren't completely falling apart. But, Trump's threatening Zelensky. Zelensky now is the dictator. I don't know if you guys knew this, but we are now a member of the Axis powers. We have rewritten our legacies since World War II. We are, with Russia and China, I believe, the Axis powers fighting against the Allies. Yes, all those smart business people who said, oh, Trump will just be a Republican. It'll be okay. He flirts with Putin a little bit, but it's nothing to worry about. Yeah, we all knew he was owned by Putin. We know he colluded with Putin. We know that Putin expects things in return, and he's getting them now. What Donald Trump said about Zelensky is reprehensible, considering Zelensky is sort of as close as you're going to get to a modern day George Washington. Or Lincoln. He's a hero who could have left and stayed there for his people. Donald Trump would have run away from war, but he had too many bone spurs, so he limped away from it instead. One of the greasiest, softest, most cowardly wimps, and he's questioning Zelensky. Tell you this, comes down to it, I'll respect I'll stand up and I'll salute Zelensky before I'll salute Trump any day of the week, twice on Sundays. One man is a hero to his country, Zelensky, and Donald Trump's a traitor. What else do we have? And the Wall Street Journal calls out Donald Trump. A lot of good that does. Thanks, guys. Good job, News Corps, all you idiots, for supporting Trump also. Going to be great for markets when Russia takes over the world and puts you in camps. They can expand Gitmo. And when he gets too rich and threatens Donald Trump's little ego, he's already threatened by Elon Musk, which is why one day he's kicked off DOGE, the next day he's back on. You're going to see a lot more of that. Mitch McConnell, how nice. He's retiring. We all knew that by the completely useless and flaccid votes he's now taking against all of the people his party is nominating. So in a way, I guess he's admitting that he's been a lying jackass for 30, 40 years now. Is that what he's admitting by voting against all these guys? He built this. He destroyed all relationships in the Senate, destroyed how it functioned with the filibuster, destroyed our judiciary by lying, cheating, and stealing the force through his judges. And now the end result of that, he wouldn't even stand up with Barack Obama and tell the truth about Russia helping Trump win during the election, that they were helping Trump. And now what does he think happens here? Either Trump's forces win and there is no history written, so Mitch is safe, or Trump's forces lose, we win, in which case a real history gets written. Not Mitch was a hero for voting against Pete Hegseth, the drunk Nazi ball gargler. Right? Yeah, right. Does he think he's getting right with his God? Because I'll tell you, Mitch, you're on the express train to hell. In fact, if it's a bullet train, they got something along the lines of what they have in France or Japan, you're on that. The quicker they can get you there for everything you've done to destroy people's lives, a few votes at the end that mean nothing ain't saving you. You loathsome, unbelievable, 147-year-old constipated turtle. Steve Bannon has joined in Donald Trump's legal team. He did this in the past too, in hating Elon Musk. I love this. This is what we call civil war. I had somebody ask me the other day, send me a response to my Substack, which is a lot like, what I talked about on the show the other day about Elon and Trump fighting and Trump's legal team firing Elon or disappearing him from DOGE. saying he nothing to do with it, just an advisor, blah, 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 to kind of insult him. And then Trump saying he wanted to hire somebody smarter. And I actually had somebody respond to me and was like, I don't get it. What are you saying? What's the point of this? If you don't know what the point of that is, by the way, I'm an opinion columnist, not a journalist. If you don't know what the point of that is, then I don't know what you're doing here. I deal in facts, and then I give you my opinion on them. Facts are, if Trump and Elon are fighting, if Trump is mad at Elon, the way he's been mad at other people like Jeff Sessions, and Mike Pompeo, whatever, what happens to those folks when he gets mad at them? They end up losing their security, or they end up getting kicked out from their jobs and not reelected, or various things happen to them. When Trump doesn't like you, bad things happen, and there's a civil war and they're fighting with each other. I don't understand how somebody wouldn't get why that's good. So now that Steve Bannon is joining in, outstanding. We can talk about that too. And of course, the lead story of all lead stories, Elon Musk yet again, and Jasmine Crockett yet again. If those of you over from Tony Michael's show, is almost the perfect introduction, seeing what we saw there, which was an ineffective press conference that probably conveyed a terrible visual and nothing else, versus what Jasmine is showing, and others like her, but she's one of them, showing Democrats how to do. Not scared at all of Elon Musk, taking personal nasty shots at him. I'm going to read some of these every chance she gets. That's pretty much what we have on tap for the show. Hey, Tony's here. Didn't even see because I was reading my list.
Yes, I'm here.
How's it?
It goes, there's too much snow where I'm at, so I've got to go dig I've been slowly but surely over the last few days digging each car out of the driveway, so I've got one more to dig out. So
I guess you're one of those rich people with multiple cars, huh?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you get the Beamer out first, or was it the Mercedes?
No, it's actually my Dodge is the only car that we've had out for several days. My truck, but we have a minivan, and my son has a car too, so I've got to dig those out as well.
That seems
we've been sick here as well, so it's been a challenging week with the snow and the sinus drainage. I think everyone's going through that right now in the country, though. So,
were you guys drinking unpasteurized milk too, or
no,
nothing like that?
Okay. No, nothing like that. Nothing like that.
Sure.
And we're clear of we're clear of brainworms too.
I'm just still so angry. You're not walking around like as a costume, wearing a whale's head and and carrying around a dead bear just to show it off. You're not doing that?
No, no. We're just.
Weird. I thought everybody did that. That may be the thing the most makes me angry at YouTube, is that I cannot make the jokes about RFK Jr. There's so many good ones. These sons of bitches will not let me make them because of all the words I cannot say.
Right, because they have certain words you can't say. So, but yeah, if someone asked, did Missouri have snow? Yeah, we've had a couple rounds of snow, and this week it snowed one day, and then it snowed the next day. So
same here.
Not only have we had snow and sickness, but we've also there's no school, so you've had to deal with no school, which is sometimes a pain in the neck when the plan is to have school and then you don't have it. So.
Right. I mean, we love our kids, but they're notoriously well behaved while you're trying to work, I'm sure.
Well, my kids are usually they can keep themselves preoccupied. It's just, you have the things like, Dad, can I eat something? Like, well, yeah, you can. Well, will you make it for me? And you're like,
yeah. My kids are great too, but it's those kinds of things that happen.
Right. You're like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah. I'll take 30 minutes out of my work day to make you food, but so it's not like you want to feed them. You want to feed them. So,
right. It's not like Ozark, the show. Like you haven't brought them in on any drug dealing.
No,
they're now part of the operation and they're laundering for you.
No. Not
just making sure.
Not currently.
Okay, I just want to make sure. You never know.
Yet.
Hey, look, kids have free time.
Yet.
And your kids are clearly smart, so you never know.
Exactly. Yeah, during the summer and during snow days, we might consider these things. So
it's an internship like any other.
Right. Exactly. Well, I got a flash because I got to go dig this car out, but I did not expect that. But someone needs to have more than one vehicle at this point, and we've only got the pickup truck that's out, so I've got to go.
All right. Well, so I've already had the kind and always here, I will add, and that counts for a lot, Cynthia, remind me that I need to learn how to put video and clips up there. So there could be a this weekend kind of thing.
Yeah, what you can do, and you can experiment right here on the show. I'm sure the audience will not judge you for this. The little present button, just open up steps. Open up an audience listen so you can help clip through this. Open up a Chrome tab of what you want to see.
Yeah.
And then present and make sure to share that Chrome tab of the tab you want to see, and they'll see it on the screen. It'll be
not some of the other tabs I have marked private.
No. Only the tabs that you want them to see is the one you should share. I mean, you can show tabs that you don't want them to see. Just again, you make it demonetized on YouTube.
Right. We'll see with Philip Ittner coming up in about 15 minutes. There may be an actual background of Ukraine that may beat any background I can show. I don't know exactly where he'll be dialing in from, but we'll see. I saw somebody there said, Cliff, and I need you to say just one more second for an announcement. Cliff, you need to do a crash course. You need a crash course from Hal. Yeah, and Hal's guy, Rob Glenn, is brilliant too, who I've talked to before. But Tony knows his stuff too.
Yeah, I've given him a couple crash courses. He just
the problem with
the
me
audience
is if I learn
give him
something
the
once,
confidence.
it's ADHD stuff. I learned something once. I need the second time. I nail it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's
get
together this weekend, and I'll give you another crash course in showing. But I tell you, I'll be right up front with you, Cliff, is that the audience is not going to judge you if you mess it up. I mess up every day.
They're cool folks, and some will, and I won't care. The ones who are the good ones who want me to grow as a human, not in a sort of Elon Musk kind of way, more sort of an emotional growth.
Right.
I think they will be fully supportive. And I will. I think.
I do want to say one other thing before I go. Holly Fafo in the comments says she said we don't want to see porn, Cliff. Holly, you may be speaking for yourself. I'm just saying there might be plenty of people in the chat that want to. I
know it's good. I'm not even. I just have to make sure. Like, there's no point in doing it if I know I'm not going to be able to do it. So I'm not worried about it. I see the present thing. I may jump in there, but I think there's one incredibly important announcement I need to make first, and it has to be made while Tony is here.
Sure.
Which is, folks, this coming Tuesday.
Yeah.
That would be the 20th. 20th? No, that's
today's
today. 25th. This coming Tuesday, the 25th. I am launching. It's a relaunch of sorts, but I am launching on Substack.
Woo!
And when I say I'm launching, what that means is you've heard me sort of kind of say some things about it and allude to it. But over years, I've had a fundraising business through email for Democratic candidates. I decided to start sending people a newsletter because they liked to get truthful news and not just disinformation. It grew to a relatively large, at this point, we've got over 600,000 people who read it. And I decided, I was convinced, I've talked to the people at Substack, and we are taking the whole ball game over there because everybody said, we want to get more content. We can do that there. We want embedded video. We can do that there. We want to be able to interact with you back and forth, unlike just getting an email where you can't. We can do that there. And so we will immediately have one of the 3 or 4 largest Substacks in either politics or news, whatever we decide to be, which will be incredible. We'll give you guys access to all sorts of things. And second of all, because I am absolutely the stupidest human being alive, decided that to get media attention and just in general to make a splash, can't believe I'm saying this, I'm doing a 12-hour live stream, 8 a.m. Tuesday morning to 8 p.m. Tuesday night. It will be coming from Substack. From Substack. I still have to figure out how it all works because it may be able to go through to get to you folks at YouTube and Twitch. I think you can go from there to other platforms. I don't know the whole deal yet, but that's what we'll be doing. 12 hours. I have all sorts of awesome guests that I'm in the process of lining up, some of whom you've seen here before, some of whom you haven't. Some have huge Substacks. A few of them are celebrity types. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to have a big account.
12 hours of streaming? Fantastic.
Yes, and that's why Tony is going to fill in for me for a little bit of it here and there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
And
sure.
my friend Tim Fullerton, who I've already asked, when I have to go pee, because I don't think I have a 12-hour bladder. We'll
No,
see.
no, there's very few people out there that probably have a 12-hour bladder.
And when I see somebody up here saying Malcolm was trying to tell people, I think you mean Malcolm Nance for 3 years, what was coming. Malcolm Nance is one of the people who has already agreed
Ooh,
to join me on that
very
12-hour.
good.
So we're going to have a lot of really, interesting, cool folks. I'll be setting the Guinness Book of World Records for Substack that will last like 5 days for their longest live stream. And but it should be awesome, and this channel should be awesome, and it'll be a little.
So basically, what you're doing is you're moving your newsletter you have now over to Substack. Is that basically?
Yeah, I never thought of it as anything but a way to increase engagement, get people information. Look, we were asking people, raising money for Democrats, for progressive causes, for good nonprofits. And I thought just asking people for money, it's not my I mean, yeah, we need money. We need to ask people for money, but like, that's not the only thing. I wanted to make it more of a community. So I came up with the idea. I'm like, why do when I hear about other email lists, do they not send out newsletters? Why shouldn't I send out a regular newsletter? And at one point, before we had some issues with our CRM and whatever, I was doing it 3 days a week. So, it's going to at least start on that pace. We'll get people all the info they need. And even you may not know this, Tony, but we're going to move that is called my email list is called Blue Amp Action. For a little bit, my Substack will be rebranded Blue Amp.
Okay.
And Cliff's Edge, which is my column I write for now, will become a vertical underneath that, where I will be the obnoxious me writing my columns. And then what we called the Blue Letter, we named it that because it was Blue Amp Action. And Blue Amp Action we gave it that name because we're all about amplifying good, getting good news out there, getting truth out there, right? So that's what the Blue Letter will be. It'll just be like a roundup of what's going on. We'll get to you regularly. We'll get you my columns. And we'll be ready for a couple more announcements because I told you we've got a big personality joining us who's an Emmy award-winning former anchor on some major stations, and not announcing that quite yet. But and some other fun people that So get it on your calendar, 8 a.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. I've talked to the guy there at Substack. I even sent him something today, one of their top guys. I'm like, hey, dude, I don't know how to do the thing through you guys yet. And I kind of need to know a few of the people you told me, you're getting for me so I can put my people around them. He's like, don't worry, mate. He's one of those. Awesome. He's like, we'll have it all set up and I'll be in touch with you. So I'm going to go on faith here, my friends, that this will work. And I'm excited for it, honestly. I'm not excited necessarily for all 12 hours. I'm sure there'll be times in there that I'll question my sanity and say, maybe I should have just gone to a 5th floor hotel room in Moscow and drank some blue tea. But the rest of the time, I think I'm going to actually be pretty happy. I'm excited. This launch is going to be for real. And guys, seriously, we've always wanted to make a difference here. We're going to make
Cliff. I have to go. I have to go.
He's a son. Yep. I mean, he doesn't care. Big moment in my life, making a huge difference. We're the biggest Substacks out there.
I know. I have so much pressure. So much pressure to get snow off a car. All right, we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. So in all seriousness, I'm absolutely excited for that. I've been holding it back a little bit. I think Veronica spilled the beans on YouTube and one of our. Still love you, Veronica, in one of our posts last night at our community page. But blue tea was that WW was that tea they put that he put the what was it polonium in? It's called polonium, and he poisoned somebody. That's Putin again, allegedly. I don't have to say that actually. He's not American, so I don't really care. But in any case, yeah. In the past week, you've seen plenty of people in the past couple of weeks, Jim Acosta and Beto O'Rourke, because people showing up at Substack left and right. And again, I'll still be with YouTube and doing all of that, but this stream will come from there because I get your emails. I can stay in contact with you. You can respond to me, and we can have back and forths like we can here in the chat room for a lot of the stuff I do there. I can embed video, which I can't in my current newsletter through the CRM. I send an email. You have to click on a link and leave the site and sign up for YouTube if you're not signed up, whatever. Now I can just, so there are a lot of advantages and I'm excited for it. A lot of new features people will be able to get. It'll be free to join all the basic stuff. And then we're going to add some paid tiers. Maybe my column that I write will be a paid, we'll see. But you're going to get a lot of cool stuff and I'm excited for it. And in between now and then, I'll figure out how to present on here. Okay. But before Philip Ittner gets here and we talk about a little bit of the Ukraine, I just want to tell you a little bit about what else is going on. I put up here purposely about what Jasmine Crockett is doing because she is giving, it is a class. It's a tutorial and how to not only not be scared of a billionaire, but to hit them at every insecurity, undermine them, point out their dishonesty. And I wanted to share it all with you. The way you get attention is spectacle. The way you get attention on television is by having charisma, by getting people's attention, saying things that matter, saying it in a good way. And she's done that. She went on Ali Velsh's, I believe you pronounce it, show. No mincing words. She ripped Musk and called him a coward, essentially, for not showing up to the DOGE subcommittee. He's supposed to show up and actually testify before them. But, he's a billionaire. He's better than the rest of us. So he doesn't have to do the things that little people like us have to do. So she looked at the camera and said, Elon, if you're watching, come through, boo, because you haven't shown up to the DOGE subcommittee yet, and kind of winked. Mocked him beautifully. Come through, boo. But not even close to all of it. She talked about the sheer incompetence, the fact that he's lining, he's basically enriching himself off of this. They've found no inefficiencies. They fired the people who were handling our nation's nuclear stockpile. The FAA, something else we should talk about, firing people there, So with the nuclear stockpile, here's our quote. These are the same guys. They're like, oh, wait a minute. We needed those guys. Can we get them back? Oh, we don't know how to. Again, telling it like it is. Partially comical and partially terrifying, if we're being honest here, that they let the guys handling the nuclear weapons go without knowing, hey, maybe you should give me your number. Do you have an email? Is there a forwarding address? Then she went after Elon for his blatant profiteering. And this, by pretending, I'm finding all these fiscal inefficiencies. And this is brilliant. As she put it, he's not out there trying to save money for the American people. That's not what he's doing. He's lining his pockets. All this misspreading information about providing condoms and confusing a province in Mozambique with Middle Eastern territory. It's almost as if facts are an afterthought in this administration. And then she went on and referred to the group of people who help him. And they said, well, why haven't they been able to say what they've been able to do? And she said, well, because they're all a group of idiots. They don't know what they're doing. And then she said that this is all a very simple plan for Elon. It's about lining his pockets. It's a money play. That's all it is. And perfectly put. She called him corrupt and called him a coward in numerous different ways, all in the same interview, and mocked him. Called him boo. Said he's lining his pockets. Said this is a money play. Called him and his group of little incel friends idiots who misplace things like people that manage nuclear weapons. That's what you need to do. I'm seeing MJ. It's official that cash is confirmed. Unbelievable. Cliff, fix the hair. Is that the hair? Oh, this one is like, do I have a hair? Wee! Is that better? Does that make you happy? I was going to say other stuff, but Kash Patel. I'd written something up about him a little while back. Let's see if I can find it, because maybe we should jump to that before I even get to Elon. Unbelievable. I'm not sure where that is right now. I should have been ready for it to happen. But Steve Bannon, just to add in something else, referred to Elon as a parasitic, I'm using his words here, illegal immigrant. He doesn't seem to like Elon much. And again, these are the kinds of fights, when they fight with each other, they can't be as effective, obviously. Here's more from Bannon. He wants to impose his freak experiments and play act as God without any respect for the country's histories, values, or traditions. I'd argue that's you too, Mr. Bannon, or the country's hygiene, for example. Maybe shower this week. Bannon added in the opening line of an article, he's referring to himself in the third person. That's how you know he's a big shot. Steve Bannon is ready for war. Wow, cool. He thinks Musk is owned by China, which is true. And he's ready for a third Trump term, so he doesn't believe in the Constitution. Right. Everything you kind of know about him. Basically, he's a scumbag. But he's attacking Elon for the fact that he won't go after the Defense Department, which is kind of a good thing, and cut some of the defense spending because that's where Elon pockets all of his bucks. If Bannon, with his sort of speaker, with the access he has, can keep going after him like that, that will be helpful. And now we have to get back to Kash Patel. My God. I would simply make the argument that the man with the faraway eyes, he's going to have an enemies list. He's so unqualified. I honestly believe he may be more unqualified for that job than Hegseth is for defense. I'm not sure. What's he done before? Even if he wasn't crazy, even if he wasn't a vengeful bastard, even if he wasn't all those things, what has he actually done before? Yeah, Collins and Murkowski voted no. And that was expected, but that's the problem. Sure, Tillis was scared again, not doing his job again, and voted for him. Essentially, Collins is mostly terrible. Lisa Murkowski is the only one I'll even say has some decency to her, and it's not a lot. Collins is mostly terrible, and every other Republican in there is not worth an ounce of spit and should honestly be removed. Okay? Every one of them. There's no pretending anymore that there's anybody moderate-esque or reasonable at all. I find it interesting that Mitch McConnell didn't end up voting against this one. Maybe he thought Kash might come after him if he did. Because I think he was actually on the enemies list. I'm not kidding. Kash is going to go. The thing is Kash is going to go after the Republicans first, who have not been sufficiently loyal. He said it. Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, people like that. Amazing to me. So these guys call themselves a party and a democracy, pretend they stand for anything. And outside of Matt Gaetz, who had open investigations into him for trafficking, outside of that, they couldn't stand up to anybody. They couldn't stand up to Kash Patel, who participated in January 6th and helped Trump's purge of the Pentagon. They couldn't stand up to Pete Hegseth with the upside down keg stands and, love for Hitler memorabilia, I'm sure. That wasn't enough. I don't really know how anybody can even make the slightest argument. I mean, it's been a while since you really could, but how can you even make the slightest argument that this is a party and a democracy, that this is a party with sane people, that this is a party that cares about policy at all, that this is a party that cares about decency, that this is a party that represents the United States of America, this is a party that cares about our Constitution, that this is a party that in any way even resembles the Republican Party of 50 years ago, which was far from perfect. They are a party in Brezhnev's Russia, is what they are. They are a party in North Korea. They don't care about policy. They don't intend to fix anything. Everything is about power. Everything is about your station. Everything's about how much money you can grab, how much status you can grab. In certain cases like Gates and others, how many women you can grab. That's all it's about. Nothing. And again, I'm sorry. I'm glad Lisa Murkowski's voted against these people, but she's sticking with this party. She's caucusing with them, even though they kicked her out in a primary before. And she had to run as an independent. What does it take? And that's why there are people like, oh, nothing's changed in the Republican Party. Look, we all have to do nuance here. Republican Party, has been, it started down this road. Well, you could even argue in some cases in the 1930s, and then with some Goldwater positions. And then Reagan, certainly, Newt Gingrich and McConnell were two of the most destructive human beings in each of their respective houses of Congress, and others to get us to Trump. George W. Bush's administration, obviously. Sarah Palin. But, when George W. Bush, you folks who are old enough may remember, won and was proposing a number of laws that were insane, that were far outside of the mandate of a bare election in 2000, where, remember, he lost the popular vote. And what was hinky in Florida when they just, we're not counting anymore. It doesn't matter. Brooks Brothers riot, which was started by Matt Schlapp, who you may have seen just got busted again for grabbing another man's genitals. I'm sure he gets drunk and he thinks it's women. It's all accidental. And no, he's not gay. Like the 50 different people who've seen him at clubs in DC. Which, by the way, being gay is absolutely fine. Being gay and assaulting people, just like being straight and assaulting people, is not fine. But he was you can see him in the picture of that Brooks Brothers riot at Miami-Dade in Florida in 2000. This is, that Republican Party, okay? You may remember Jim Jeffords gave Democrats a majority to stop what Bush was doing because they became so offensive that Jim Jeffords, who was this old money, some relative of his had been the first, I want to say the first, what do you call it? One of the first Supreme Court justices in Vermont, old line Republican family, moderate, East Coast, whatever, left the Republican Party, became an independent, caucused with the Democrats. Does that make him perfect? Does that mean like he opposed some things earlier on that, Clinton stimulus, if you want to go back far enough? I'm not saying he didn't do some terrible things. I won't say that Olympia Snow didn't. I won't say that a whole bunch of folks, but you can't say that Republican Party, that was a party that had wrong solutions that were based solely, it seems, on market forces, but they did have solutions to things. They did actually believe in things like, the carbon swaps and that kind of stuff for climate change. They actually the ones who came up with the Obamacare plan. That was a way of not having single payer insurance. You required a mandate. That's how you got around that. And Romney passed it in Massachusetts. Like they did have policies. They weren't always the best ones. In fact, I'd argue most of the time they weren't. But they believed in legislating. We talked about this the other day. Even George W. Bush, misguided, wrong in his Leave No Child Behind, but proposed something to try to deal with education. It was a one-size-fits-all approach, so it failed because different schools have different issues. It should have allowed more money, and it should have allowed locals who understood the problems in their schools to fix them, among other things. Point being, they're not that anymore. They don't believe in even governing at all. Governing is insulting. It's making fun of. It's hurting people. I mean, if you want to call rounding up people to, taking away people's rights, whatever, governing, but it's not based on any coherent philosophy of anything. All of this should lead to them getting crushed in 2026. But with Kash Patel there, how fair will the elections be in 2026? They've already, certainly in states like mine, secretaries of state purge votes in all sorts of manners. I mean, California, New York, some of these states are really just going to have to stand up to them and tell them to get bent. We're going to have to be what the South was in the 1960s in certain states, except for we're on the right side of history, and tell the federal government to stay the hell out because we believe in equal rights as it was laid out in the Constitution. I don't know what the other answers are here. California has like the fourth biggest economy in the world. I want to say New York maybe top 10, ninth, something like that. They've got leverage to threaten with. Disproportionately pay into the federal system. There's some other states that do too, but those are two big ones that have a lot of leverage. I don't know. But this fight's going to get real. So get prepared. Because Kash Patel is as dirty as they come. And he will do whatever. There's a reason when Trump was planning his little coup, and people noticed this, which is why Dick Cheney and all the living at the time secretaries of defense wrote an article about the duty of military officers to respect democracy and the Constitution. Sorry, I just got a text. Was trying to check it out. Philip's not here. Let me see if I pulled a move from yesterday, like I did with Tony. And I know I sent him an invite. I'm pretty sure of it. There's always a chance that he's in Ukraine. So I'm hoping he's somewhere safe. And there's always a chance he's sort of hiding out somewhere, or let's see what's going on, guys. Okay, not in there. Let me try my email. Sorry, but and now also as a human being, want to make sure he's good. Unlike Republicans, we're human beings and stuff. It's not all about the show. Let's get this to him. All right, now I know I sent him the invite. I thought I had before. We'll see. Hopefully he will join us soon. You know what though? I've been doing a lot of talking, which I always do. I want to get some of your guys' opinions on some things here. Before we get and before Phil gets here, I will, as usual, ask you to first of all, the most important thing right now is please go sign up for Substack. If you can share that at some point, Jim, that will be great. Please do that. Please sign up for my Patreon. That will still be where you'll get extra video and these kinds of things. Please subscribe to YouTube. And as you know, we always love super chats and we always love super stickers here. And I'm going to say that now because of the fact that Tuesday is going to be a bear, folks. You're going to be able to tune in anytime you want during that time. Again, I will find out and get you guys details. If, you know, it's true. If I get details after this, I won't be doing a show tomorrow. There must be a way I can get all of you the information. Tony obviously will. You go on Tony's show. I know a lot of you from Tony's show. What I might do is if I get all the information so I know where you need to go and I can't get it to you any other way, maybe I'll do a 5 or 10 minute live stream tomorrow just to kind of get you where you need to be on Tuesday. If you can't just go in the usual way. But I have to say, guys, this is a huge opportunity for us to make a difference. Everybody, all of our voices. Think of all of our voices combined, and think of those of this list I built over 4 years of over 600,000. And some of you I'm sure are here or on that list. And another 4,000 I've already built up at Substack, and we're going to try to bring some of the 87, 8, whatever thousand Twitter followers that I have there because I don't do anything there basically anymore. Over, all the different ways we can bring everybody there. Cliff want to be an influencer. Well, I think I kind of already am. I think when I'm not saying that in any kind of an arrogant way. I think when I passed 100,000 on YouTube, I think when I wrote a book, and I think when I had columns in places like Daily Beast and some of these things that I've done, 2 days ago, we had nearly 30,000 people in the chat here. So I think I already am. When you say influencer, I don't mean that in like influencer. I'm influencing things. I have a voice that reaches folks. So shouldn't I use that for something? I've told you that all this, the fundraising platform that I created to raise money for Democrats, we had an incredibly successful year last year. We raised a ton of money. We disproportionately outperformed every other list like ours. And I was able to do really well. I don't have to, I could just say, hey, I'm not going to put in all of this extra time. But should I, raising money is doing something, but otherwise, if I have a voice that can reach people and can convince people, if I have a voice that can be a part of the conversation, shouldn't I do that in every way possible? Every one of you should, to be honest with you. And maybe this helps give you that. Because guess what? By being the folks that come here, if you join at Substack, and I have that size of a Substack, if everything goes well, I know Neil deGrasse Tyson's been talking about that asteroid that has a 3% chance of hitting us in 2032. So that's at least if Trump stays in power, we know we got that to help us. But assuming no Trump and no asteroid, which is the preferable outcome, there's something here to build and to hopefully, fight and to win and to have democracy. True democracy. Equal democracy, right? Stuff that we said in the Declaration of Independence that never really lived up to. That we've had lots of backlash to do from guys who need to get back scratchers because they've got hairy backs. You know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I want to be an influencer, not because I need it financially and not because I need it for my ego. I've kind of accomplished what I'd set out to do originally because, you guys understand I'm an old guy and none of this stuff existed. When I got into this business, I was like, I would like to write speeches or ads that make a difference. Hopefully for some of the top folks out there, you know, I'd like to have a column where I get to give opinions. You know, and maybe even write a book. I got to write a book on McCain. I got to write columns of the Daily Beast and the Guardian and syndicated one. I feel lucky. I got to write ads for Joe Biden in 2020 and we won. You know, I got to write speeches and op-eds back in the day for Howard Dean when he was the DNC chair. I mean, really I never, I shouldn't say never dreamt. I dreamt of all of that and thought most of it would not happen. And, there are other dreams I had too that didn't happen, such as life. But the point being, like everything I ever hoped for, on a career level, I've accomplished. But how do you walk away right now and leave the country in the shape that it's in? How do you say, like, I don't, maybe my voice, in fact, there's a really, really good chance that my voice accomplishes absolutely nothing. Because maybe I'm just a pebble falling into the ocean. But I can try, can't I? So can all of you. All of us can try. And the winner of today's contest for You're Awesome goes to WW for saying that I'm a kid. Tell my kids that, man. Over the hill, old man, gray beard. They got lots of solid ones for me. And I don't take any offense to any of that. Thank you. That's a kind comment, but I'm a very comfortable 53-year-old who tries to eat pretty well and be in shape. And dude, I think for a second there, I didn't see the screen. I don't know if that went dark for you guys too. See, I managed to mess something up. All right. I really don't know what happened with Philip Ittner. There was somebody who booked him. Oh, I think he's got the timing incorrect. He thought it was in an hour. Sorry, guys. I got to let him know. So, Philip, hopefully he'll get here soon. Come on as soon as you can. There we go. We'll need to know what's going on. I'll never see 53 again, Gary B. Well, I'll never see 52 again, my friend. That's the way this works, as far as I know, unless we've Benjamin buttoned it. I would say to you, the age doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me at all because I've tried to stay fit, because I've, tried to, most of the time. There's an exception. Look right here. Gummy bears, not my best habit. I only allow myself to do that while I do these like once a week, maybe twice but for the most part, get some protein in you, eat some vegetables, fruits, awesome. Exercise, get some massages if you can do it. Try to meditate a little bit. Go for long walks when you can just be pensive. Listen to music or watch shows that like release endorphins. Do all that kind of stuff and more. Stretch. If I have any advice for you young kids out there, stretch your lower back. You can't ever get that back. Life is not a number, it's a now. Mr. Stoner, to you, you are correct. And I'm loving the now, except for the people running our government. I'm hating the now, and that, and it's more for like, it hurts me that my children have to spend another 4 years under this. I brought them into this world. At least I played a role. And they have to, no kids should have to grow up with this crew running things. No kids at all. It's unfair. It's horrible. The lessons you learn right now are that cruelty is rewarded, that empathy is for the weak. That's what the people, the people at the top are saying. It's horrible. So upsetting. All right, guys. So you guys are gonna come and join me for some of my 12 hours on Tuesday, right? Because I don't believe in any of that 5-hour energy crap, but I'll tell you, the coffee will be flowing. Like the blood of the non-believers. I don't know. I took that from a movie. And I don't even know what. Yes, it will be flowing. What would my response be back to someone who supports Kash Patel? I assume you're asking me that, Kenny. I mean, nothing I can say on this show without being demonetized. An urge for the kind of behavior that would have me thrown in prison that I wouldn't engage in. He's the worst of the worst. He's an absolutely terrible human being. Absolutely terrible. He's proven it again and again and again. He has no respect for people, no empathy for people. He's going to hurt people badly. So if you support Kash Patel, there's really no way I can support you as a human. And this may tie in well. I see my friend Philip Ittner is here. I'm excited about it. And, you know, even though he is where he is in Ukraine, I have to believe that Kash Patel becoming our FBI leader, I can't even use that word. It says he's an FBI turd. I don't know. Being that he is going to be what he is, because remember, none of those guys tried to pull anything with Ukraine in the past. Let me add Philip to the stage. How are we doing, my friend?
Hi, Cliff. I'm as good as one can be expected, given the circumstances, and I appreciate you inviting me on to talk.
Letting you. I appreciate you letting me have you on as somebody who.
All right, we'll have to find some common ground there.
Well, here's my ground. I make my ground very, very simple. You could be doing lots of things as somebody whose work I've read, seen, whatever, as a brilliant human being. You have chosen to go to a place and put yourself at risk and report from there so we can get the truth. There are Republicans in a recent report who, because they got death threats and other threats, Tom Tillis was mentioned. I'm sure that was the same reason he voted for Kash Patel today. Decided after he made lots of noise about voting against Hegseth, voted for him because apparently he got a death threat if he didn't vote for him. Again, I'm sorry, but we all choose our place in history. You've chosen to go somewhere that's particularly risky. I am not even close to on your level, and yet I'm not. I try to, scrape what I can from the internet, whatever, but I'm not that hard to find. I get death threats. I get all sorts of things, and I won't shut my mouth. But these guys who have chosen an elected job, they don't have to be there. Tom Tillis can go the hell home anytime he wants. He doesn't need to be there. Let somebody serve who has the courage of serving. Yeah, history sometimes ends up with a Michael Collins or a Martin Luther King or heroes giving their lives because they believe in something greater. Often people who are heroes, they don't end up having to give their lives. But you're taking that risk. So get more security. All these guys are multi-gazillionaires anyhow. I mean, I just, to use that as an excuse, we're no longer a democracy in that situation. That's ruled by terrorism. That's ruled by fascism. If you think, the whole point behind democracy, and then I should shut the hell up. I want you to tell everybody about yourself and whatever, but I'll end with the whole point behind democracy is we rule by ballots, not bullets. And the minute that you've decided that fear will control your vote, we're no longer a democracy. So now I'll kick it to you. Why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself and what you're doing there?
Well, I mean, first, let me respond to that. I think you're 100% right. And I think from your perspective to mine, and then from my perspective onto those guys who are out there in the trench lines in eastern Ukraine, literally fighting back against Russian aggression, that, I mean, it's not just geopolitical. There's an ideological problem here in that, or an issue here in that, those soldiers, those Ukrainian soldiers, are fighting for the same ideals that our founding fathers fought for against the British Empire, which was, held dominion over the colonies. This is a colonial war. Moscow intends to exert its imperial power over Ukraine and force them to live as they do, which is an abandonment of everything that we stand for or should stand for in the United States, in the form of liberal democracy, the rule of law, one man, one vote. All of these things are very important, and that's why Ukrainians are fighting as hard as they are. So I feel beholden to do my best, because I know those guys are really suffering out there, and the least I can do is to, hop on the internet and talk about it. Look, I'm a veteran. I'm old enough, and I have enough gray hair in my beard.
Hey, me too. Just my beard isn't as big as yours, but I got quality gray too.
Well, I used to sport a goatee, but I've let it all hang out. I've been a veteran. A war correspondent. I've covered over a dozen wars. I was deputy bureau chief for CBS News in Baghdad. I was bureau chief for Voice of America in Islamabad and Kabul. I was eyewitness to wars in Georgia, Libya, all throughout North Africa, all throughout the Middle East and the former Soviet Union. I've seen combat. I know what that means. And I was on Maidan, the square here in Kiev, in 2014, when they overthrew the government and properly did so, because it was a corrupt government that was a stooge for Moscow and a kleptocracy that was robbing this country blind.
Right.
And I was on Maidan, and don't let anybody tell you it was a CIA-backed coup. It was not. I was here. This is a genuine drive here for democracy. Anyhow, I was on the square back in 2014, and I had these two old ladies come up to me and beg me not to let Ukraine get rolled over again, because it's sadly the history of this country. Time and time again, they've been used by other imperial powers as kind of a chess piece. And it was a very emotional thing, and I pledged myself to doing that.
Well, that's amazing, and good for you. And it's amazing. I'll say quickly, where Ukraine and Poland have to be two of the worst located countries. Historically, being located between Russia and Germany was never a good thing for a long time. But I continue. Sorry.
Anyhow, I made a promise, and I've been in the news business for, going on 3 decades, and was hoping to kind of get out of it. Like many of us during COVID, I kind of reassessed my life and decided I was really tired of being surrounded by misery and pain and suffering, which is kind of what I was doing, and going to refugee camps and seeing children starved and dislocated, or the death and the destruction and all of what war reporting entails and crisis reporting entails. And I was done. I got it. Been there. Got the T-shirt. All the rest of it. And was hoping to transition into doing nice kind of using my skills to do things like, report about the Pacific Coast Highway or the Great Lakes or something.
Right?
Something nice.
Me too. I was hoping Trump might lose, and I could just write an article on how Appetite for Destruction is one of the best albums of all time, and
there you go.
My love for Breaking Bad, and there's so many other interests I have, and then this happens.
Yeah. So when the full-scale invasion happened, remembering my promise in 2014, I felt obligated to come over here, and I came here, and I tried initially kind of to get some freelance work with large news organizations, but I quickly realized, not to my surprise, because I've been in the business for so long, they had no interest in covering this story properly. They were going to do it surface level, and the next shiny object.
Corporate media doing a crappy job. That's the reason I exist here. That's the reason we talk everything up. That's why reason I'll bring it up again. I told folks that I'm doing my 12-hour live stream, and Philip will be on it, by the way.
I'll be there. I'll be there with pleasure.
Substack on Tuesday, because again, that is a place where I am not owned by a corporation. I can give you, it is not censored. I can tell you whatever the hell I want. Whereas even here now, you start seeing Google bending the knee to Trump, Gulf of America. And so I have to, I can't say certain stuff or they'll demonetize me. I can't, I can't talk about certain things, right? It's and again, what's insane is the things you can't talk about versus what you actually can get away with talking about is just ridiculous. Yeah. And so I think, but
you are right. Our corporate media, having been inside the beast and seen how the sausage is made, has very little to do with actually informing our electorate, and instead is more about profit.
Yeah, can I say something quickly? Because
that firsthand.
It's very relevant to this. So when starting off my career, working in this stuff, when I was consulting more on races and writing speeches and things, I mentioned to people earlier, I did some stuff for Howard Dean and and certain other folks in the early 2010s. Even though I think I said to you, my background was international affairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I started doing all of that, but I realized as time went on that you could, even if I were just a columnist, even if I were just whatever somewhere, I could see that corporate beast from within. So I wrote a column of the Daily Beast, for example, speaking of beasts, which is now I think has pretty much just become a click factory. But used to be a pretty respectable place. And I wrote a column I wrote for The Guardian for a while, and I was never like you. I always was a columnist. I used facts, and then I tried to make it interesting for people, conversational, humorous, whatever it might be. And I saw these places refuse to cover these stories, to act like they just weren't there, to disappear them, to Howard Dean's scream was on every newspaper, but Donald Trump, well, close enough. George W. Bush, it took a while for them to actually start reporting that he was going to cut people's Social Security, which really ended up being one of the things that did him in. And, there's so much irony right now for me. First of all, my grandfather came over from Odessa. So I feel that connection. I'm sure distant relatives have been killed by Putin in the same way they were in the Holocaust. That's one. Second, I used to do work for the State Department for USIA. They would have me do democracy promotion.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Sort of an irony, if you think about it, that they should have been sending me to Ohio and Missouri and places I live in Cincinnati. I could have done more good promoting democracy here than anywhere they were sending me, because apparently we don't get it here. But they sent me to Romania. And I'll never forget, because that's just south of where you are. And a quarter of my family comes from there too. They sent me to Bucharest. Okay. And was another city, Bacău, I believe was the name of it. And then I went up to Iași, which is right on the border. Apparently it was the home of the fascist party in Romania. So that was nice. But I didn't get to meet any of them. So that actually was nice. But so I was just across the border from Ukraine. So I've never actually been in it, but I was right across the border there. Similar people, similar. And you could just, the fact that I was there promoting democracy, and now we're watching that whole region get blown up by these scum suckers, by these vampires. Again, the world order he wants to get rid of. He wants to get rid of NATO. He wants any partnerships, any alliances, because again, if we go back to a pre-World War II order, then he can invade all of these places. And when you go to that length and you ask yourself, okay, so he wants to invade all these other countries. We know he's a mass murderer. We know he bombed indiscriminately. We know he's encouraged violence against gay Russians, other groups, other minority groups.
Sure.
He's Hitler. I mean, we can dance around it all we want, but he's a 21st.
He's a fascist.
He's the 21st century Hitler.
He is 100. Yeah, no, he's 100% a fascist. Yeah.
Right. So if he's a 21st century Hitler, do you know what we are now? We're part. This is probably my next Substack piece. We're part of the Axis powers now.
We're Mussolini
with Donald.
We're not in the driver's. We're not in the driver's seat. Putin's in the driver's seat.
He's in the
If
driver's seat
Putin
with
is
Donald
Hitler,
Trump's statement.
then Donald is Mussolini.
Tell me if
you
I'm
know?
wrong. I mean, with Donald
No,
Trump's
you're not.
statement,
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And Cliff,
it's us, China,
we
and
also-
Russia at this point, who are all the.
Yeah,
the-
well,
the-
it's Yalta, isn't it? Dividing up great powers, slicing up the world, and everybody just has to step in. Come and stand in line and get in order behind whatever great power adopts your territory as theirs.
Right.
You have to subjugate yourself to it.
I mean, when I studied history, I never dreamt I would live in an Axis power, but here we are.
Oh, I see somebody in the chat is asking if Musk has cut off Starlink. No, it's still working.
Oh yeah, I put that up before. I meant to ask you. Good, thank you.
Yeah, I sponsor a unit of the territorials here in Ukraine by paying for their monthly Starlink cost, and it hasn't been cut off yet. So it's my understanding it's still working. But look, I mean, having said that, I've covered over a dozen wars. I have, but there's no comparison to what is happening here. This is the most important war of our lifetimes. This will decide. I firmly believe that this is an inflection point, whether we go into a period of autocracy or whether or not democracies survive. And Donald Trump is a product of autocracies. And his recent statements, in some ways,
Napoleonic and the rest. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Napoleonic. I am the state. The state is, I am the state. The state is me, sort of thing. This Napoleonic concept, and in some ways, it's almost been like a relief for me, the things that he has recently been posting, because I can now openly say he's compromised. Trump is 100% compromised by Vladimir Putin.
It's impossible. I feel like it's been relatively impossible
to design
other conclusions since Finland. But now, I mean, I mean, I don't know if you folks have seen this. So I want to read it to you. Because it wasn't just an attack. His statement on Zelensky that he put up. What does he put up on Truth Social?
Mm-hmm.
I saw somebody with it, and I want to get it right. So hold on one sec. I think Aaron Rupar may have had it up at Substack. So I'm going to look for Aaron. And we'll see if we can get his notes here. Hold on a second.
Sure. Well, while you're doing that, I mean, he is compromised. There's no two ways about it. I still firmly believe that the Russians manipulated the 2016 election.
Oh,
I have reasons for that.
Do you mean like the head of the FBI, McGonigal, being a guy that was the source for a New York Times article that we see no connection between Trump and Russia, like a week before the election, like
also,
that?
Also the head of the New York FBI bureau, who apparently compelled Comey to make the statement about Clinton, just days in advance of the election, that he was also taking money from the Russians.
Yep.
That they, look.
I mean, Paul Manafort giving over the stuff to
Manafort giving Oppo research. Look. I have also seen the Russians interfere in elections and the body politic of any
everywhere.
Number of different regions.
It's their MO. Romania, right?
Exactly. Romania just recently.
We went there to. I went
rightfully. Rightfully annulling their elections because they knew that Moscow had interfered.
I want to make that ironic point that I was sent by the U.S. State Department, USIA, to promote democracy in Romania in 2004, folks, and about 20 years later.
Oh, sorry, Cliff. Hold on one second.
You okay?
We've got some anti-aircraft. Yeah, we got some anti-aircraft going. No. I'll let you know. I'll let you know. I mean, it's living in Kiev.
You're one courageous son of a bitch, and I appreciate you. But I was going to say, I
But
was
look,
sent to Romania
you were sent to
well, I just
Romania
wanted to make that
to
one line
foster
because I feel like
democracy.
that line is
Yeah,
very important to make clear that I was sent by the great United States of America to lecture at universities on news programs at these, with diplomats and, that kind of thing, in a number, about 7 or 8 different talks over, 5 days, whatever it was, in 3 different cities to talk about democracy in Romania. Here we are, barely 20 after more than 20 years later. You said 2016. We also know that Russia was involved in pushing the whole thing that started the Springfield, Ohio, they're eating the pets. That was Russian pushed. They did all
yep,
these kinds of things in 2024. We didn't nullify our election. Romania saw that a guy that spent no money made it past the first round.
yep.
And they just said, and they traced it, and they said the Russians have attacked our elections. Let's not call it meddling. Let's call it what it is: a cyber attack on their elections, and they nullified it. So apparently, we should be getting our lessons from Romania.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right in making the point that we should not call it meddling. We shouldn't default to this idea that it is buying a bunch of Facebook posts, as JD Vance has recently said. They were deep into our body politic. They have infiltrated our elections. They've infiltrated our civil societies. They've infiltrated our journalism, information warfare. It's a concerted effort. I urge everybody to do a quick Google search for a guy by the name of Mikhail Lesin. This is one of the things that was a major flare for me. Mikhail Lesin was a guy who helped Putin rise to power in Russia. He is often called a spin doctor, but he's more than that. He's
Right.
an information warrior who got rich off of Putin rising to power. And of course, what do all Russians do the second they get rich is they leave Russia and they move to the West. And he chose to move to the United States. He was in DC in late 2015. He was in DC. And the scuttlebutt is he was going to talk to U.S. law enforcement about Russian intended information warfare attacks that were coming. And he is found dead in his hotel room, having bashed his own head in. No, he bashed his own head in, apparently.
As people always do, right.
DC Metro Police say that it was because he was an alcoholic and he'd been heavy drinking. I think DC Police, in conjunction with Langley, probably put the kibosh on that because, look, if you openly say you know what the Russians are doing, you're at a disadvantage. You lose an advantage. So anyhow, I think that they have been inside our electorate and they have been manipulating our body politic for 15 years, well over a decade.
Think about Cambridge Analytica, right?
Yep.
And the information they gleaned from that. But I read something really interesting, really detailed academic report. And it asked the question, was Ron Paul the first Russian attempt? And if you look back at 2008, he was this little known quirky congressman from Texas who voted against his own party on weird isolationist grounds. This is back when the entire GOP, this is how quickly they've changed. They were wrong on all sorts of things, but they all supported NATO, or at least most of them did, and that kind of thing. And out of nowhere, he started getting huge online traffic to the sites that existed then. Facebook was one of them. I don't know what is it? It could have been like, Friendster? I don't know, whatever the hell social media was back then. And these huge emails.
MySpace.
Yeah, they got a hold of email lists and they would target huge email fundraisers for him and do these. They called them money bombs back then, if you remember, and raise him all this money. So he started getting invited on Fox News and he became part of they made him into someone who could be part of the debates that had big enough numbers when he didn't. And the question was, and if you think about it, Putin was just at that point stepping down. He was in power from 2000 to 2008. They were doing their little fake dance where Medvedev stepped in, but he always pulled his strings. And then they changed the Constitution. He came back in 2012. Putin said, "I'm president forever." Point being, that seems like the first attack. Snowden is clear for what it is now, for what it was now to me. and plenty of other of these kinds of examples. They were engaging, and look, I can admit, Democrats didn't see it either. Barack Obama, others. If I can give Mitt Romney credit for one thing, and I don't like giving Mitt Romney credit for a lot, but he did say in 2012 or so that Russia, and he got laughed at for that, Russia is our biggest strategic enemy out there. And everybody's like, no, it's Al Qaeda.
The 80s called, and they want their foreign policy back.
Right, and he was right, and you know, we just refused to see it. If we put, have to believe CIA and other intelligence officials had to be putting some of those dots together. Ron Paul out of nowhere, and you know, a couple of these countries had.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you a direct example. So in my 30 years, give or take, of working in at the highest levels of American journalism, broadcast journalism, I have obviously made some good contacts, made some friends, people that I consider friends within the Army, within the military, and within the intelligence community. And one year about circa 2018, 2019, I sat down with an old friend of mine from my Iraq days who had been a public affairs officer for the Army, but was now working in an alphabet soup group. I don't want to dox him. So, you know, an intelligence group with three letters sort of thing. Anyhow, we sat down over a couple of margaritas and some Mexican food in San Francisco, and we had this interesting conversation. And he said to me, and I'll never forget it, he says to me, Phil, we had every single representative of every single intelligence agency sign on to a declaration to the American people that the 2016 election was being attacked. Again, attacked, not meddled, attacked, not lobbyists, attacked. And they were just about to hold a press conference. And all of the heads of the agencies were there, all whatever, however many, I don't know, 12, 17, something like that. I don't know. I forget the number of all, but everybody, everybody in a unified front is about to present a declaration that Moscow is attacking our election. And as they're waiting to start, all of the networks and the agencies and all the representative of the press suddenly get phone calls, and they all start packing their bags. They start breaking down their cameras. And of course, the public affairs guys and the press secretaries are like, what are you doing? We're about to announce this major thing to the American people so that they know that there's interference happening and we're under attack. And the guys, it still stuns me to this day. They go, we're not going to air with this. We've been told by our editors we're not going to air, so we might as well pack up. And the press secretaries are like, why are you doing this? This is an enormous event. Do you know why? The TMZ video dropped. Grab them by the pussy.
Which the Russians admitted that, or others admitted was timed. Yeah.
That was orchestrated 100% to interfere with this press conference, in which the entire unified collection of every intelligence agency and defense organization in the United States was about to tell the American people we're under attack. They're very good at what they do, the Russians, and they play us like a fiddle. We got to get better with that, and we also have to recognize that our president is, better or worse, he is our president, is compromised. The man is compromised. The man is you look at the appointments he's making, from Tulsi Gabbard at DNI, who is openly pro-Putin. And you were just talking about Kash Patel. The FBI, we oftentimes forget about this, but domestically, the FBI is the anti-spy agency. They're the ones that track down Moscow's agents and infiltrators.
So we can expect none of that to be happening.
That's gone, which means they're going to run roughshod the Russians are over our body politic. We are losing this war, and it is a war. Make no mistake about it. I know people get upset with me when I say this, but I'm going to say it regardless. We're at war with Russia.
Yeah.
Not because we're at war with them, but because they're at war with us. And we
cyber
don't have
war
any
is
choice.
21st century war. It is still war.
Hybrid warfare. It's still warfare, and there's a body count to be involved. And it's not just here in Ukraine. The body count is in America. Think of what would have happened if it hadn't been Trump when COVID came along. I mean, COVID may not have come along at all had he not disbanded Obama's working group there that coincided or worked with various countries around the world to stop things spreading. So
right,
we get
and now
Trump
he's only letting the guys who
Moscow
handle
wants
the
them.
nukes
So
go.
there's that too. Look, we're in such a precarious place, and I think we better wake up to it. Now, having said all that, I have for years said, despite what the right says, that we're not headed to a civil war. And I have said that because I've been to war, and Americans will not like war.
We've been protected for so long. We have no stomach for that.
No,
kind of
we
thing,
we like being able to go to the Walmart. We like being able to go drive from Michigan to Arizona without any obstruction. Civil wars happen, and despite that, I think that movie that came out last year called Civil War, which depicted a second American Civil War, is a piece. It's a piece of junk. It's a terrible movie filled with like war journalist tropes. The guy who's
and its
the
premise didn't even make any sense. Its
and the
premise
premise didn't make any
Texas
sense,
and
and also
California versus it just was dumb.
right.
It
And
didn't make a point.
it was filled with memes and tropes about the journalist who's in it for the adrenaline high, or the the jaded veteran journalist, and
always get the picture.
It's a piece of junk. It's a piece of junk. It's a terrible movie. But the one thing that they did get right is the depiction of what civil war, what comes with war. And do you want to live in America where you get checkpoints going from city to city, from town to town, militias, random bombings? You're just going to go down to the whatever. As I say, the Walmart. You're going to go go to the Olive Garden and get the bottomless plates of pasta, and instead what happens is you get an explosion next door. I mean, it's Americans don't know what war looks like. They really don't.
No, unless you've been there, you don't. I think everybody should also go watch great show, by the way, some episodes of The Americans. Yes, is it a little bit exaggerated, a little bit crazy, a little bit whatever, but what it captures, I think, really well is that 1980s when it takes place feeling and what was going on, the games that we were playing with Russia back and forth. Because I just put this up here by John Rankin, by an old Russian spy saying if they had social media back in the day, they would have sunk us a long time ago. And I think he's right. I mean, they found ways during times without social media to get their people in places of influence. Always remember that Donald Trump went on a trip to Russia and then came back here and put a letter to the editor or whatever it was, a column in the New York Times attacking Reagan's policy towards Russia as being too tough. They found people that were easy to compromise. They compromised them. They had them place pieces in newspapers and on TV, up in corporate America and other places. They created cultural changes. I mean, they're so good at this. And then you hand them social media. And it's like,
I mean, even back before social media, there's the famous story of them dropping the tale that the CIA created AIDS.
Yes,
and they put that in the Times of India, and they just let it sit there, and until somebody else picked it up and then it legitimized the story, and then everybody
It
else
became a
picked
big
it up,
conspiracy in this
and it
country. Yeah.
became a very, very, and there are still people who believe that. Now accelerate that by 1,000-fold, and that's what we're looking at with social media. Of course, they are using this against us, but they're also doing things like they're weaponizing migration. In
Oh yeah.
2016, the head, the Supreme Allied Commander Europe, General Philip Breedlove, at NATO, he published, or well, he announced an investigation that had been conducted by NATO that showed that Moscow is purposely weaponizing migration to force or to make
Cause unrest
and to foment reactionary extremist right-wing movements, in particular right-wing movements. And they did it with the Syrian refugees. On the Edge, we just did an episode about 3 weeks ago, with a Nigerian-based African journalist, and he described how the Russians are in kind of this border region between North and Sub-Saharan.
Didn't they send
Africa.
the mercenaries in there? That mercenary group,
The
that was run
Wagner
by
group,
the guy
the
that
Prigozhin, yeah.
Yep.
They draw people to this town, which I'm gapping on at the moment, Abidjan, I think it was called, or I'm gapping on. People are going to have to go check out the episode. But they draw people to this one town, this one city, where every week, once or twice a week, these Russian guys show up in, great big vans and trucks, load all of these African, refugees and wannabe, immigrants, drive them up to Libya, put them on boats, and send them across to Europe, so that there will be this backlash, and a right-wing
we've
backlash.
seen it, Germany, France.
Now, Germany, France, but if you don't think that they're doing the very same thing in the Americas,
of course,
you're being willfully naive. Russia doesn't do anything. When they find that it works, they don't ever do it just once. They rinse and repeat, and it's the same.
And you look for
thing,
patterns, right?
thing.
You learn that.
You look for
I almost ended
patterns.
up going into
their
security.
modus operandi. Yeah.
When I studied international affairs, I almost went into security stuff. I mean, and you look for these things, and I guess it's been so hard for me to sit here and just see, there's the people that were useful idiots and liars. Fine, we always are going to have them, compromised people. But even there are people, sort of certain people on the left I consider smart people, who are like, oh, it's not as bad as you think, and it's not as. And I'm like, look at what they're doing. Look at what they did in Moldova. Look at what they did in Romania. Look at the obviously Ukraine. It's actual
France.
Truth.
Le Pen.
Look at what they did in France.
The AFD in Germany right now.
They gave money to Marine Le Pen
for the election.
Right. Yep. Look what they did with Brexit. I mean, this is, if you don't see patterns here across the world and what they've done to elect these kinds of leaders, they support Orban, they support Erdogan. I did work on trying to prevent genocide, and ethnic cleansing of this enclave of Armenians in Azerbaijan called Artsakh. And the day before that kleptocratic a-hole Aliyev launched the attack to displace these people, guess where he was? He was at the Kremlin meeting with Putin, because Putin gave him the go ahead, and that was another way that Putin was gonna sow disinformation, but also have you look over here while he's doing that over there. I mean, I'm sorry for people, whatever your take in the end is, doesn't matter on, because I'm not going to get into a whole Israel, Palestine, this, that thing here. But as many folks pointed out, they supported Iran. They supported Hamas. They pushed for Hamas to go in, and whatever your thoughts are on Israel, they also, on the flip side of things, support Bibi Netanyahu. I mean, they
don't care.
If you're a fascist,
they don't have an ideology.
You.
Yeah,
right.
If you're a fellow fascist and an ultranationalist, they like you very much. But ultimately they don't care. This is the cynicism of their attack methodology, is that they don't really care. As long as they can pit us against one another,
Yep.
Divide and conquer is the name of the game when it comes to Moscow, and they're winning. They are winning. They are
That's what's so
beating the
upsetting.
tar
Is they
out
are.
of us. They
And
are
you know what?
beating the tar out of us.
And you know what's
The-
more
and
upsetting?
we're winning on the ground here militarily. There is every possibility. Don't let anybody doom spread and tell you that Ukraine is going to lose inevitably and they can never defend themselves. That's 100% not true. The Ukrainians are winning this war. Things may get rough with Trump withdrawing U.S. support, but their objectives here in Ukraine are not reachable in my assessment. And again, this comes from 30
Right.
years of studying the war, 30 years of studying the Russians. What they can't do, just briefly, they cannot take Odessa and they cannot take Kiev. And without doing those two things, they cannot reach their goals. Yes, it would be a shame to lose 20% of Ukraine to the Russians and the mineral deposits that are out in the east. But really, this battle is about colonization. So they need to change the government in Kiev to a friendly government. Ain't going to happen. Russians are hated here. That kind of happens when you bomb people.
Right. Bomb hospitals and schools and
and expect them to be your buddies. No, that's not going to happen. So they're not going to get a puppet government in Kiev. And then in addition to that, they don't have the capacity to take a major city. So they're not going to, Kharkiv out in the second city out in the east. They certainly can't take that, I don't believe. But more importantly, strategically, they can't take Odessa. And
well,
Odessa,
can I ask you a question? I mean,
sure.
They don't even have enough men anymore,
No.
right? And do they
They
even
can't
let
take
women?
They can't take a little town called Chasiv Yar. That's what they're fighting
They've
over
been
right now.
importing North Korean soldiers. I mean, do they even have enough? Do they let women fight? I don't even know.
It may come to that,
But they haven't, right? So they don't have enough men to fight.
They haven't. No, and they don't have the men and material. And also, and let me just finish up, and then I'll follow up on that point. But let me just finish up with Odessa. They can't take Odessa, and unless they take Odessa, they cannot take control of the Black Sea, and that
Right.
they only have 4 fleets, and they aspire to be a great naval power. And in one fell swoop, they have lost their fleet up in the Baltic Sea, because now Finland is part of NATO. Finland and Sweden have joined NATO, so they're boxed in there.
And Assad falling, right? Cost them the
Assad
base in
falling, so
Syria.
they don't have their access in kind of a half fleet there, directly on the eastern banks of the Mediterranean. They've lost that. And of course, they've now lost the Black Sea fleet, because as long as Ukraine has Odessa, they can always threaten the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet, which is in the Crimean Peninsula of Sevastopol. This is a major reason why this war started, is because they want to be this major naval power. Anyhow, so they cannot win here. It's not in their capacity. They can't take a major city, and they can't change the government in Kiev.
Well, that
so
is
there's
all
that.
incredibly good news. I would say quickly, the one thing that still gets me incredibly angry, again, as somebody who has worked in communications and information and this kind of stuff, is one of the reasons that they're so successful here, even more so than they've been in, I would argue, the majority, almost all Western European countries, is because we let them be, is because we have an outdated, stupid, and really one that never made sense interpretation of the First Amendment, where it means you can say anything and disinformation is considered equal to information. Hate speech is considered equal to information. Some of the things that they say, and it's Russian bots that they push on Twitter here and other places in the United Kingdom, in France, in, Canada, in places like that, where they've got laws against hate speech and terrorism and Nazi symbolism in Germany, they would be arrested for all of that. And they can get away with it here. So they can win new recruits here in a way they can't in some of those countries. That's my
this narrative. Well, and this narrative that's being picked up, that Europe doesn't believe in free speech. Well, Europe has a history, And there's a reason why they don't let anybody just say anything. They had a
Yep.
little, there was a guy in the 1920s, 30s, and
Right. Very
ultimately
bad
40s,
mustache.
who using the new power of radio, the social media of the era, was able to melt people's minds and sway them into a disastrous route. And the same thing is happening again, and the Russians are doing it. So if we decided to back Ukraine, there's no question in my mind but that they would be successful and they would win this war, and it would put Moscow and Putin on their back feet, which is where they need to be. And it's not, Putin is a result of Moscow. Moscow is it's this long history of imperial power. And
can I ask another question?
Doing it again, yeah.
Because you know more about this, obviously. So let's say we stop paying into these funds. We can't find ways around Trump to do this and that. Maybe in negotiations for budgets, we can hold certain things hostage. I don't know. But let's say we don't do that. Is there a capacity? Europe, Australia, Japan, Canada, South Korea. I don't know. Name your democracies around the world. Your freedom-loving nations. Are there ways they can step up and make up the difference, or no?
I think so. It's going to be, look, an actual European security organization, independent of NATO. That's going to be a really tall order to make happen. But already we're starting to hear talk around Europe of, let's at least start implementing like a budget, so that we can build a European.
Because they have the EU, right? So
we can't trust the Americans
anymore. Economic to military.
You could do that, yeah, absolutely. I don't think the Europeans themselves know exactly how this would shake down. And one of the problems that Europe has always had is that it isn't the United States of Europe; it's a confederation of European states. And
you're right.
Given their history, they don't always agree. And that's me being polite.
I mean, that's kind of us too. So, I mean,
that's kind of us too, but we got the federal government.
I know.
We have an identity. We have an identity as Americans, or at least we have. It's being eroded, but at least we have. The Europeans don't have that at all. But they are starting to talk about what a non-American partnership, a partnership solely between Europeans and without America, what that's going to look like. But they have the capacity. They could, and I believe they will support Ukraine. I am not desperate. I'm not panicked by the U.S. Withdrawing their support for Ukraine. It's not good. It's going to be it just means a lot more Ukrainians are going to die. The war will not stop.
Yeah,
because it's existential for both sides, really, but certainly for the Ukrainians.
That old line about occupied powers. They you can occupy them. We tried it with Iraq. Yeah. It was pretty stupid. Yeah, everybody tried it with Afghanistan. We tried it during the Spanish-American War of the Philippines. They'll wait us out. Like and the Ukrainians
will do the same thing. The Ukrainians will do the same thing with the Russians. The difference is the Russians don't have any problem with conducting like mass murder. But then that leads to the question of, will the West and America included in this just idly sit by and watch as, and I don't mean to be, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic. When are we just going to sit by on the sidelines to a country that we promised we would help defend goes through a series of massacres and labor camps and just rounding people up by the tens, if not hundreds of thousands, and any man of fighting age and all this kind of stuff? They've done it in the past. The Russians don't have a real problem with this. But the Ukrainians for sure will continue to resist. So my question to the West is, are you going to, look, they still here in Europe are besotted and rend their clothing when they think about the massacre at Srebrenica. And
right?
Srebrenica is going to look like this is the massacre that happened in Bosnia.
Yeah.
and the
during
UN
during
and the UN, and the UN peacekeepers kind of willfully ignored it. And they still
Here's a
feel
question
deep,
for you,
deep
guilt
for that
I,
having happened.
I don't mean to interrupt, but a question from one of
Ukraine's
our
going to be worse.
commenters.
Yeah. How can we support?
Yep, I think that's
How
an
can we
important
get aid
question.
or money to their military? I mean, there's a number of different ways. I have a couple of personal groups that I support. There's a group called Lifeline UK, Lifeline Ukraine, which is it's a suicide prevention and mental health hotline.
Okay, Lifeline Ukraine, good.
Lifeline Ukraine is a very, very good group. There's the Ukrainian Children's Action Project, led by Dr. Erwin Redliner out of New York, and they do stuff focused on children and providing medical aid, physical and psychological. So that's the Ukrainian Children's Action Program.
So I'm doing
Project.
the first one. I'm putting a link in right now.
Mhm.
That's the link to the Lifeline Ukraine that I just came across.
And then most recently, I've become aware of a guy who was former USAID, and I had him on the show to talk about USAID. But he has an organization helping a variety of different units, military units, and he calls it "In the Trenches Ukraine." I believe is the full thing, but in the trenches. They're all good, and I can vouch for them, and I can vouch for them personally because I know those guys. But there's, there are organizations out there doing really, really good work.
Well, maybe we'll do
you
a
want to
show
be
here.
careful. You want to be careful.
No, well, you're giving us stuff, and I trust you. I just put "In the Trenches Ukraine." I missed the second one in here. Maybe what we'll do is from you,
Ukrainian Children's Action Project,
Okay,
or
we can-
Erwin Redliner is the he and his wife are in charge of it, and it's a good group. It's a good group.
Maybe we'll do maybe that's part of what we'll do. Hell, maybe I'll spend part of my 12 hours of being live.
Well, I'll tell you what. Before I join you on Tuesday, I'll get some.
Give me the information because I'm going to set a goal to raise at least a couple $1,000s for them, if not more.
That'd be great.
See how it's going.
That absolutely. But
This
again,
angers
I'm
me
not
to no end. So I mean, it's
yeah,
sickening.
I'm not no, it is. We should not be abandoning these people. It's a betrayal, and it is shameful, and it will be regarded as such for a very, very long time. And look, Ukrainians are not stupid people. They get it. They understand a lot more than these maybe
right. And these goddamn Republicans
reversed.
who now come out and are like, oh, well, I opposed Trump on that. The ones who are supposedly standing up to him on it. You all supported this. I don't care. You Republican in Congress, you're putting Tulsi and Kash Patel and people in there. Honestly, just shut up. Like, it's just like, there's just, I get so sick of it.
Yeah, the crocodile tears.
Let me read this because I found the
crazy.
I found the statement earlier, and I feel everybody should hear this just to hear what an absolutely gross, grotesque, gaudy, gauche, disgusting, sick, bulbous, idiotic, I can keep going, president we have right now. Think of it, a modestly successful comedian.
Thing.
I mean, Vladimir Zelensky taught the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won. Yes, it could. That never had to start. Yes, it did. Russia invaded.
Yes, it did.
But a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, I hate when he does that, by the way, will never be able to settle.
Third person.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, what a loser. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe. I'm sure that's a made-up number. I have no idea. But even Reagan understood that spending this kind of money was an investment in our safety. I'll continue. And Europe's money is guaranteed while the United States is getting nothing back. That's not true. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden...
Also, it's not a quid pro quo.
Right.
It's in our interest.
He doesn't understand anything that's not a quid pro quo. Demand equalization in this war. Okay, I'm going to skip through because there's so much stupid in here. I can't even... On top of this, Zelensky admits that half the money we sent is missing. No, he has not admitted that. He refuses to have elections. No, he's not having elections now. They're in a time of war. Most countries don't really do that. He's very low in Ukrainian polls. I have no idea, but I'm going to guess that's probably not true. And the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle, which he put in parentheses. I mean, yeah, which he put in quotes because he's a moron. A dictator without elections. You mean Putin? You mean Orban? You mean the Saudis? All your best friends, Donald? Zelensky better move fast, or he's not going to have a country left. I mean, again, this is Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered. Blah blah blah. He's insulting and threatening a democratic republic that was attacked by a fascist country. We are an Axis power.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much about this that disturbs me. But firstly, let's address the election issue. Here's some ammunition for all of you who might run into this argument. Legally, under the Ukrainian constitution, in times of martial law, they cannot hold elections. It's law. And martial law was voted on. It was not imposed by President Zelensky. The legislative body, the parliament here, the Rada, gathered together the day of the initial invasion nearly 3 years ago now, on the 24th of February, 2022, and they voted to call for martial law. The second they did that, elections were impossible. And not to mention, how do you conduct an election in these kind of conditions?
Well, that's the point. That's why countries don't have elections during wars.
Right.
It's impossible.
Not least of which, because how do the people who are currently living under Russian occupation, who are still Ukrainian citizens, how do they cast their ballot? What, do they just get their vote? Their voice is null? It's just dismissed because they're currently living under Russian occupation. That's not a democracy either. That's cutting out a whole section of your electorate because they currently happen to live under occupation. It is ignorance and stupidity of a degree that is just overwhelming. I mean, again, another episode that we're very proud of at On the Edge was when we sat down with a member of the parliament who voted on that day, and she tells the story of them gathering together to make that vote for martial law, knowing full well what it would mean. Zelensky has done nothing out of his legal bounds. If
you trust your president and it means the survival of your country,
and if they want to change
you do what you have
to do.
If they
wanted to change it, they could gather together, lift martial law, or amend the laws outside of martial law to say, it's fully within their power. They haven't done it because they understand that solidarity and and that Zelensky's doing a good job. Now, the other thing that I want to remark on with that idiotic posting that our president, I can't believe
childish toddler-esque rantings that should have been in crayon.
Baby.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing that he says in that, aside from the whole election thing, is that this war could have been avoided. Russia as an empire was always going to come for this place. All right. Again, I was on Maidan 2014. These two old ladies come to me saying, when the Russians come for us, please don't abandon us. Back in 2014, they already knew that this war was
Putin was making quite clear at that point.
Moscow was never going to let their colony. This is their colony. This is the building block upon which they built all other colonies is Ukraine. It's like the Irish and the Brits. This was kind of their this is where they got their empire started. He was never going to just let this go. So Trump's idea that he could have avoided this war is so ignorant about the situation.
It's not an idea. It's just a lie like everything else. He doesn't really believe that. He doesn't know.
He doesn't know more than that. He doesn't exactly.
He has no idea to know whether it's true or not. So he just lies.
He's not He's not a curious man. You know, he
or an
doesn't.
intelligent
He
man,
doesn't.
or a
Or an
wise
intelligent
man.
man, or all the rest of it.
Right.
But the other, and then there's another aspect to this tweet where he called Zelensky a dictator. And again, this plays into his ignorance and his lack of understanding of what's happening here. That has actually been 180 degrees the other way of what I think he intended it to be. The people of Ukraine are furious at that. And I have spoken to so many Ukrainians in the last day and a half or whatever since he dropped that ridiculous thing, where they said, actually, I'm really I don't like Zelensky. I'm hypercritical of Zelensky. I know quite a few guys in Ukraine that are really, really critical of Zelensky, but they have said to me in the last day and a half, 2 days, if there were to be an election, having given the fact that Trump has said that, I would vote for Zelensky. He boosted Zelensky's numbers significantly by attacking him.
Maybe Zelensky should ask him to speak out more.
Yeah, really. And the other thing that just irresponsible man-child, posting that he put on his whatever it is, his Truth Social, is that any peace negotiation now, I would say, any peace negotiation that is brokered by America, certainly if it doesn't include a Ukrainian voice, but I think even if Ukrainians are involved in the negotiation process, any peace plan that is put forward by the United States now following that statement is going to be seen as suspect.
Of course, right?
Met
How
with
can
a
you
lot of
trust it?
skepticism. And mainly, most importantly, because the perception of Donald Trump here in Ukraine, who may not, many of whom may not follow domestic politics, but the mask is off. They recognize that Donald Trump is a puppet, is an instrument of Putin. And so Marco Rubio might as well pack his bag and go home, because there is no way to a U.S. negotiated peace in Ukraine now.
Of course
because
not.
The Ukrainians
and Europe,
do
it's not going
trust
to. Ukraine,
Americans.
yeah, Ukraine's not going to accept it. Europe's not going to accept it. The way I
No.
see this playing out, sadly, is you talked about a European alliance or whatever. As far as I know, the only countries at this point that are part of, the NATO alliance, that alliance that have nuclear weapons are the United Kingdom and France. My guess is some others over there now. I read about some of this will start upping their defense budgets and start looking into that possibility. I mean, that's what's going to happen here is they're going to arm themselves more. It's inevitable because you can't now. The United States is suddenly not an ally, but is actually part of the Axis powers with two other big evil dictatorial countries. Well, then you need to do what you need to do.
And if you think our oceans are going to protect us, you're wrong.
Nope,
you're wrong. In this day and age, our oceans will not protect us. I mean, whether it's cyber warfare and information warfare, and all the things that we've previously discussed, the oceans are not our protection anymore. And Americans better wake up to that real quick, because Trump is making this world a lot more dangerous. Because you're right, everybody now is going to start looking for, if Article 5 is no longer a thing, and the might of the American military can no longer be trusted, they're going to look for the biggest weapon in any arsenal to be a deterrent, and that's going to be nukes.
Yep.
He is the greatest danger to the world that I've witnessed in my life, and perhaps only only Putin himself, his puppet master, the guy who holds the leash to the collar that's around his neck, is worse. But this is unprecedented in terms of how dangerous things are getting, and he's doing it with a lot of support from people who are
I
really
think
fellow travelers to Moscow.
I think they're either scared of him, or I started making this argument years ago during his first term that, and we'll have to end on this because we have to end before 4 o'clock here, but hold out because we'll
Fair enough.
say one or two more things. But it was obvious since the day that conversation was spoken that was supposed to be in quiet between Kevin McCarthy and Paul Ryan, where he said, I think we've got two people on Putin's payroll, Trump and Rohrabacher. Rohrabacher clearly was. And if they'd gotten to them, I kept asking people, how can you believe, if you look at the example of the EU, and it came out when they were, the Crimea attack, they had bought certain EU politicians, they'd bought certain journalists, and then it comes out with this group, what was it, Tenet or whatever media, with Benny Johnson, and all these guys are being paid. When you see how, again, I'll say allegedly, for legal protection, but when you see Rand Paul and you see Mike Lee, and you see some of these people that argue vociferously, Marjorie Taylor Greene and others for Russia, I refuse to believe that there aren't a number of members of Congress fully as compromised as Donald Trump on the Republican side. And obviously members of right-wing media and other groups like that, and obviously far left.
Look what's happening right now. Look what's happening right now in this rift between Trump and Zelensky. There's been this dredging up of all of these narrative lines, these attacks against Ukrainians, against Zelensky. I'm sure we'll see the neo-Nazi stuff coming up again.
Yep.
there was an American journalist who
Zelensky, the Jewish neo-Nazi.
Right, exactly. There was an American in quotation marks, because he wasn't really a journalist, who was engaged in Russian propaganda. He was spreading pictures of military locations, where they were placing their artillery.
Oh, right, I remember.
Or he was doxing guys that were joining the Ukrainian Legion from abroad. He leaked this entire database, with their names and addresses and stuff, and they joined the Ukrainian military. The authorities in Kiev resisted arresting him several times. They arrested him once, they let him go, and then he tried to run away while he was under probation, and they threw him back in, and he was an alcoholic, chain smoker, obese with a heart condition, and he died in prison. Kiev did everything to avoid that happening, because
right, of course,
this guy was a little mosquito. He was an annoyance at best. But the powers in Kiev thought, let's not. Why compromise or put at risk our relationship with the United States by killing this journalist? So they've been over backwards not to let him out. But you're now seeing that being dredged up by the likes of Benny Johnson and
of course,
what's his name,
Dave Rubin, and
Mr.
Tim
Beanie
Pool.
Cap.
Yeah,
there
that's
we
right.
go.
Tim Pool, who can't take his looks like Kenny from South Park.
Go with it, Timmy boy. Bald is beautiful,
man. Once I've told people, once mine starts falling out, I will just shave the whole thing. I'm all good.
There you go.
I wanted to put this one thing in there to show that this is a good point. Brad Polly and Monica Bauer made it too, which, yes, there are Jewish neo-Nazis. It exists. Stephen Miller, it's a perfect example, but they are few and far between, let's just say. To believe that Zelensky and other folks like that are one, like for every Stephen Miller, there's very few.
I make the point when it comes to this neo-Nazi topic. Are there far-right extremist groups here? Yes, there are. Are there even Nazis here? Yes, there are. Sure, but they don't hold any power. They're widely rejected by the population in general. They don't have no seats in the parliament. Pardon me.
Yep.
And not only that, Ukrainians are fighting to get away from autocracy. That's so much about what this war is. You think they're just going to swap a fascist Moscow master for an indigenous Nazi? No, they don't.
They're not
want
doing
to live under autocracy.
So Phil,
they're not going that direction. got to wrap up, but I want to make
Wait.
one last point about that.
Yes, please
when
do
the
quickly.
Nazi narrative goes quickly, when the Nazi narrative is out there, is that we're now 3 years into this war. The international community, including members allied with Moscow in the BRICS nations group, the entire press corps is here. Where are all the Nazis? It's a bunk narrative, and it's propaganda.
It was spread by not their allies, their Glenn Greenwald types, and it was always garbage.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to thank you for being here. You're awesome.
My pleasure.
And just consider this, folks. Round 1. I will either tomorrow or Monday, when I don't normally do these things, come on at 2:00, do a 5 or 10 minute thing, and I will let you know how, because I'll know more by then. You can get in maybe just the same way as usual, maybe a different way. So when I do the 10-hour craziness on Tuesday, you can be a part of it. Philip will be there. I'll be there. You should be there. Thank you for joining us, Philip Ittner, who is essential to our understanding of our domestic and international politics. I want to thank you, and we'll talk on Tuesday, my friend.
Indeed, and please do check out our channel on YouTube. It's
Check
my
out
name,
On
Philip
the Edge.
Ittner, one L in Philip.
I'll start sharing it.
We're very proud of it. We go in depth. It's not a surface conversation. It is, if you want to understand the nature of what is happening here and who these people are and why they're fighting so hard, that's our intent. So I hope people will check it out, because there's a wealth of information there.
So that's the last that you've got it up here on the screen, and you can see Philip again on Tuesday, probably at 9 a.m. Eastern, I think we said, but we'll get a whole schedule out of when folks will
Whenever
be on.
you want, I'm at your disposal.
Stay safe. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You are essential.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
All right, guys, we've got like 2 minutes, and then I can't re-show this without getting in trouble and having to cut it down. So is anybody coming with me? Who's coming with me? Because I'm running right now. So if you're going to come with me, if you don't want me to take a goldfish, if you thought this was a great show and you want to support more great shows like this, I would say please right now throw in your super chat, super sticker, 99 cents, $1.09, anything you can get. Join Patreon. Lefty Gramps does it for me and makes it all okay. You guys are terrific. I got to go. Thank you so much. And I'll be in touch about Tuesday. It's going to be fun. Thank you.